Today's health nugget is about refined sugar. It's going to cover the topic of the world's third most valuable crop after cereals and rice. No other substance occupies so much of the world's land for so little benefit to humanity as sugar does. The obesity epidemic, along with related illnesses including dementia, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, has encumbered every nation where sugar-based carbohydrates have evolved into dominating the food economy. Let's take a look back in history and see how sugarcane evolved and where the technique of refining sugar first appeared. According to Professors Mark Horton and R. Alexander Bentley and Philip Langton, who is a senior teaching fellow in physiology at the University at Bristol, the first chemically refined sugar appeared in India. From there, the technique spread east towards China and west towards Persia and the early Islamic worlds. The technique eventually infiltrated the Mediterranean in the 13th century, and Cyprus and Sicily became important centres for sugar production. Caribbean, shortly before 1647, was introduced into the Caribbean, and it led to the growth of the industry which came to feed the sugar craze of Western Europe. This food drove the formation of the modern world. There was a huge demand for labour to cultivate the massive sugar plantations in Brazil and the Caribbean. This need was met by transatlantic slave trade, and around 12.5 million people were shipped from the Africans to the Americas between 1501 and 1867. Sadly, mortality rates reached up to 25% on these voyages, and between 1 and 2 million dead were thrown overboard. Refined sugar was originally seen to being beneficial to health, but it was the sudden mass consumption from the mid-17th century onwards that created the health risks we associate with today. So let's look at the behavioural and neurochemical effects of intermittent excessive refined sugar intake. A food addiction seems plausible because brain pathways can respond to natural rewards, and with sugar being a noteworthy substance that releases opioids and dopamine, it is therefore possible for it to have an addictive potential. Catherine Basbaum, MSRD, a clinical dietitian with UVA Health, states when it comes to refined sugar, your brain has an especially strong dopamine response, and so you keep wanting it more and more. Now, looking at the brain, we can see how sugar activates the reward pathways. If you're looking up there in the right-hand corner, you'll see what's known as the melanin concentrating hormone neurons, MCH. And this is how sugar activates the reward pathways. It leads to the site of the dopaminergic neurons, which are over there, moving over to the left-hand side at the top of the screen. And that is where it relays to the mind whether the stimulus, in this case sugar, was rewarding or aversive. The amygdala in the brain is particularly important for conditions of learning and will remember what the effects of sugar created. It also interacts with the ventral striatum, which is down there just below the reward system in the blue, which is a principal target of dopamine neurons. It gives you that feel-good stimulus. Catherine Basbaum states, a desire for more and more to get a good feeling is the same for sugar as it is for those addicted to drugs and alcohol. You don't want to get addicted to something that causes inflammation, weight gain and chronic disease as she continues. So next week, we'll continue on with this talk about sugar, and we'll look at how refined sugars long-term damage and how to eradicate it from the diet by using our God-based plants and foods and natural substitute for sugar. Just wrapping up today's presentation, I just want to remind you that Sister Thea and I now have launched our Healing Hearts His Sanctuary forum. Both of us hold certificates in medical missionary work and in lifestyle coaching. Sister Thea has a background in being a registered nurse, and I have a background in psychology and counselling. We've come together as God has directed us to form this ministry, and we're offering it to the church and to the community. You will have a 2-on-1 session whereby we're not asking for any fees, just by donations, which will cover our costs for running this mission field. So please come to us and be directed by God for your health. It is so important to God. He's trying to help us to draw closer to Him. And if we're unhealthy, we know that Satan will try and keep us away from the Word of God. We also have now launched a YouTube channel, Healing Hearts His Sanctuary, and on that every month we are doing a cooking program, all based on plant food. And also please remember our 10-day Daniel Challenge on the Facebook page, where you can put up your own plant-based recipes and become a community there as well. Thank you very much for your time today, and have a wonderful Sabbath.